It's been 4 years since Michael Myers vanished without a trace.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Andi Explained here on Burns Reviews. My name is John, and today we are talking about the final chapter in the Halloween franchise, Halloween Ends. But before we begin, if you could, be sure to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe, really do appreciate it. And that'll stop the YouTube algorithm from taking this video and throwing it into a giant grinder. Also, there's going to be a whole lot of spoilers for this movie, so if you haven't seen Halloween Ends yet, we do have a spoiler-free review right here. I have a ranking of all 13 of the Halloween movies, and I have my out-of-theater first reaction, which is spoiler-free as well. Without any further ado, let us talk about it. Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends had its world premiere at Beyond Fest in Los Angeles on October 11th, 2022. On October 14th, it was released everywhere in theaters, as well as on the streaming service Peacock for an extension of 60 days. The majority of the cast from Halloween Kills did return, including Jamie Lee Curtis as the iconic Laurie Strode, Andi Matichak as her granddaughter Allison, Nick Castle and James Jude Courtney sharing the role of the iconic Michael Myers, Will Patton as the deputy Frank, Kyle Richards as Lindsay Wallace, and introducing Rohan Campbell as the very divisive Corey Cunningham. Initially meant to take place on the same night as both Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends takes place 4 years later. This was a decision that was made due to many delays caused by the pandemic. Filming was meant to take place immediately after Kills' completion in 2019. However, it didn't begin until January 19th of 2022, with it wrapping production on March 9th. 2 weeks of reshoots also commenced later in June of that year, although filming was completed within 4 days, leading many to believe that changes were very minor. The film was met with mixed reviews with critics and audiences alike, who deemed the film to be an improvement over its predecessor, but criticized it for its convoluted story and having a weak finish to the trilogy of films. Knowing that this would be the last outing for Curtis, fans were expecting the film to be large in scope, a giant battle between two iconic legends. However, many were disappointed to find that the film's marketing was very misleading, as the majority of the film centers on a newly introduced character, Corey Cunningham, a young man who was hated in Haddonfield for his involvement in which a child is accidentally killed. Corey does his best to move past the incident, but the townspeople simply won't let it go. They pigeonhole him as the new person to hate now that Michael has been missing for 4 years. As coincidence would have it, Corey ends up finding Michael Myers while investigating a sewer. It is unclear whether or not Michael imprints onto Corey, but regardless, the two form an unholy alliance based on wrath and revenge. By the film's end, both Corey and Michael are disposed of. Corey is killed by Michael after attempting to steal his mask, and Michael is killed by Laurie and Allison after a brutal fight to the end. The townspeople take Michael's body to the local junkyard where Corey used to work to shred Michael's body, saying, and I quote, that he's
not dead enough.
The final shot of the film shows a large amount of closure for both Laurie and Allison, as Laurie finishes her book outlining her survival and reconciliation with her past, and Allison who decides to leave Haddonfield altogether. Despite its lukewarm reception, the film of course was still a hit. Having an estimated budget of $20 million, the film grossed $5.4 million on its opening Thursday night, 11% higher than Kills' opening night, which had $4.8 the year before. The film is projected to earn upward of $50 million on its opening weekend. As far as the future of the franchise, Green has stated that he is absolutely done with the story, as he is slotted to revamp The Exorcist, once again as a planned legacy trilogy. Carpenter joked that a sequel could be made to this film and that it'll still make money. Often in the past, Carpenter has stated that he is not really concerned with what is done with the franchise, but he always welcomes a paycheck when it's available. Jason Blum of Blumhouse Pictures also said that there is potential for upcoming Halloween films, but that it wouldn't be at Blumhouse as the rights to the franchise are now reverted back to Malik Akkad following the release of Ends. Director's statement. When asked about inspirations for the film, Gordon Green said, "A lot of it started with John Carpenter's influence movies like Christine and the Fog, and even They Live. We also referenced The Thing because they're watching it on TV, so that's where it began. When I was making Halloween Kills, I didn't know I'd ever make another horror movie. I thought this might be the last horror movie I make, and there are a lot of things that I haven't explored, so there's a number of great lesser-known films from the 80s, like Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, or blood rage, movies that I enjoy that have a little bit more gratuitous violence or a little bit more campy kills that you can't infuse into a Michael Myers story. When you introduce a new character with violent capabilities, he can do these things, which are the rules I set for myself. Michael can't do some of the more outrageous kills because he has a more meditative art project at hand. He's a little bit more thorough and specific, so he's not grabbing a corkscrew and jabbing hazardously into someone's neck. He's stealth, and he knows exactly where to put that knife that will pin someone to a wall up off their feet. Being able to play with other characters invited into this world is really fun. It helps me creatively explore new ways to help the energy of the kills, but maybe in a form that is not necessarily traditional within the Halloween franchise. I knew where I wanted to go atmospherically, but narratively, in terms of these specific events, I didn't know. I knew I wanted to return to a mood and a tone, inject a love story, and have something more ominous in its presence than aggressive, which the last chapter was. Which makes sense, I guess. I mean, it really does feel like the movie Christine to me. I watched this movie last year during the pandemic, and yeah, I just don't understand why they picked this film. I don't know what it is about Christine that made them say, oh yeah, it's just like Halloween. I mean, yeah, it's John Carpenter, and yeah, it does involve an unstoppable killing machine, you could argue, because that's kind of Michael Myers, but the comparisons stop there. And also, I kind of feel like they stole too much from Christine in an odd way, because I can describe the synopsis for both movies, or the plot of both movies, and it's exactly the same. You have a young guy who is being treated like crap by his town. People in his town are just really mean to him, you know, the old society's to blame kind of thing. And he's a nice guy, but you know what? He just finally gets fed up. He's tired of being picked on. So what does he do? He goes out and he stumbles across this giant killing machine. And, you know, they bond, and the killing machine is given new life. He's given a new life, and they just go out killing. And both movies end pretty much the same way. It ends in a junkyard where the killing machine is stopped, killed, what have you. Personally speaking, I would have liked if they'd put more of a basis, say, like on The Thing, one of my favorite movies of all time. Maybe they were a little hesitant to do that because they knew that The Thing is such a revered movie and Christine is a little bit less known. And I also think that they did this because they felt that Kills was a little bit too muddled. It basically just feels like they took a lot of different things from the franchise. I think they took Black Lives Matter. That's what Jamie Lee Curtis talks about with the whole mob mentality. A little social commentary. And arguably, Kills is a bit of a mess. So I guess they figured, hey, you know what? Let's take something that has a really solid plot line. It's written by Stephen King, directed by John Carpenter. It's solid. Let's go off the basis of that. Problem that I have is that it's a really pale comparison. It's not very good. I also don't love this movie because the biggest sticking point that I have with this movie, which I think people don't talk about enough, is that it's very thinly veiled. The dialogue is awful. Everybody speaks in exposition, or they speak in a way that's just conveying how they feel. And I think the reason they do this is because it makes more money that way. This movie, Halloween, is the biggest horror franchise of all time. And because of that, because it's so popular, it's kind of the opposite of what the original was. The original was an indie movie, you know, just like sweat and grit, and let's see if we can make a movie, which is a very romantic thing in the horror genre. That's why we love, you know, Tom Savini and all those early movies from the 80s, because there's a passion behind it. There's no passion and soul in this movie. This is a money-making machine. And much like the Fast and Furious franchise, they made these movies in a way where you can take them and you can dub them in any language and show them anywhere in the world, and it'll still work because it's that basic. That's why they speak in such exposition. That's why they say exactly what they're feeling. That's my take, because why else would you make the movie this way if you didn't have to? I also think the other reason is that there's just, once again, like Halloween Kills, too many chefs in the kitchen. I know Jamie Lee Curtis had her way in. Danny McBride, who I think is great. I think he's hysterical. I love Eastbound and Down, or at least I used to when it was on. And Vice Principals is another good one. But I just don't know if he should be one of the leaders of this franchise. As far as Joseph Gordon-Green, I looked at his credentials, and what did he do? how did he get this role? There's a couple other writers right here, and each movie has different writers, which I just don't know if that's even a good idea, but they do. Like, Gordon Green is like the helm of this. He's like the Kevin Feige of all this. But there's different writers in each one, and I look at the one for Halloween Ends, and I'm like, who is this guy? How did he land this job? This is one of the biggest franchises of all time, and you took somebody who has no credentials. And it shows. Granted, if it was a really good movie, I'd be like, wow, who is this guy? Let's see more. But because it's really not very good in my opinion, and you can have yours, I just feel like, why did they go with somebody so unprofessional? Another big sticking point that I have with this movie is that the ending, which this is an ending video, let's talk about it. The ending is very much muddled. You know, I'm okay with the fact that they put Michael Myers in a grinder. Fine, good. You know, his head exploded, looked cool, great. I'm talking about, like, the epilogue of that. I'm talking about the entire narration, which felt like, you know, one of the versions of Blade Runner. You know what I'm talking about, that terrible one where Harrison Ford is spoon-feeding you what he's feeling and thinking so that the audience can, you know, understand. I mean, that's really my point with all this, is that it's dumbed down too much. I feel like this movie is dumbed down way too much because they want to reach the widest possible audience. And if you dumb it down enough, you know, you can show it to literally anyone. And I'm not just talking about internationally with the subtitles. I mean people in the States. Like, if you make it dumb enough, everybody, young, old, small, smart, stupid, whatever, it'll be a movie that people can follow, and that will make it the most amount of money. Essentially, this movie sold out a long time ago. Also, one more thing about the ending. Laurie is trying so hard to appease the people of Haddonfield. Like, she feels like she wronged them and she wants to make it right. That felt so incredibly unearned. When that lady stopped her at the grocery store to, like, chew her out, what the hell? Like, I get it, they're looking for somebody to blame, but the fact that Laurie, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm out of here, she actually wanted to appease these people that were pretty horrible to her. I just don't understand that, because I would tell them to go kick rocks and fly a kite in the wind. Like, I don't understand why she would want to go out of her way to win these people over. I also thought it was incredibly funny how they got Michael Myers on top of a car like a goddamn Christmas tree and drove him down to the junkyard to put him in the shredder. Yeah, and like I said in my other review, they must have had like a group chat for Haddonfield of like, everybody, midnight procession, we're all taking Michael Myers down to the junkyard to throw him into a shredder. Police are totally going to be fine with it because they understand the 40 years of history. Yeah, okay. I personally would have liked if they took some more inspiration, say, from, like, John Carpenter's The Thing. You could have done this whole thing where it was more of a mystery of who is the new killer. You know, that's been kind of toyed with in previous Halloween movies before. You could have made it a little bit somewhere between The Thing and Scream, where you don't know who or what Michael Myers is. Michael Myers is a mystery again. But this movie just took all the wind out of Michael Myers. Like, seeing Michael Myers go from supernatural, unstoppable killing machine to a guy who's in a sewer and he can barely get up. Pick a lane. Also, I feel like they could have either committed or not committed to the idea of him getting his power from killing. They like to have their cake and eat it too, don't they? They like to have it on the one hand of he kills and that gives him the power to come back. And on the same time, they like the idea of like, well, if you're not the supernatural type, we have an answer for you too. You know, the inspiration is that he's inspired from this young guy. They inspire each other, and he found the inspiration. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Those are just my thoughts. But, you know, I don't want to end on a negative note. I do appreciate a couple of things in this movie. I do like that they had a very conclusive ending. I'm glad that we're all wrapped up. I'm glad Laurie Strode had the ending that she needed to have. You know, I'm glad it wasn't like, see you in the next one. There's none of that, and you never get that in a movie, so I do appreciate that. And I also do appreciate them just not making a very stereotypical movie. Like, they could have just copy-pasted Halloween Kills again, only in this ending he dies. And yeah, some people would have been happy, but I understand the need to want to do something creatively different. Did this one work? No, but I do give them credit for trying. Anyway, guys, I have a whole bunch of videos right here. I just ranked all of the Halloween movies, all 13 of them, including Ends. You'd be surprised where this one actually ended up, because despite my notes on this movie, it's not the worst in the franchise by far. There is worse. I talk about it. You can check it out right there. I also have, you know, a trailer reaction, not a trailer reaction, a straight out of the theater reaction talking about it here on social media. I also have a spoiler-free-ish movie review if you want to see that as well. And until next time, guys, thank you so much. You guys have been coming out in droves lately. Droves lately. And I really do appreciate it. You guys are so sweet in the comments. You've been really nice. I see the sub count is going up, and it is not overlooked. Thank you so much. And until next time, guys, I have been John here on Burns Reviews. You've just got burned, and we will see you next time.